Bill Scher is with us. He's online campaign manager at Campaign for America's Future and blogger at liberaloasis.com. So, Bill, since you were last on the show, Herman Cain has now left the race, completely predictable. You said he wasn't a legitimate candidate. I said that. A lot of other people said that. Many people who never said it are now claiming that that's what they thought all along. But also, last time you were on, I said I think Newt Gingrich is still a viable candidate. I think he's going to be rising in the polls. You said you don't see that happening, and that's exactly what has happened. It is now really, I think, tell me if you disagree, a Romney and Gingrich race.
Well, first, thank you for having me on to walk this walk of shame with you. I appreciate that. But I did potentially misread the Newt Gingrich boomlet. It wasn't that I necessarily thought he couldn't have a spike like this. That in and of itself is not surprising. But my argument before was he couldn't be viable at the end of the day because he has no real campaign organization. He has no ability to capitalize on a moment like this. And I've revisited that thought for this one reason. It dawned on me that nobody has a good campaign organization right now in Iowa, at least ones that we know about. What is a little bit unknown, perhaps, is does Mitt Romney or even Rick Perry, have they built an Iowa organization a little bit under the radar that we don't know about yet, and they haven't bragged about? I mean, a lot of times it's hard to really understand how good an organization is from the outside. All you generally hear is trash talking, but no one's bragging about their organizations right now in Iowa, so we don't really know. There was a poll in the New York Times that came out this week suggesting that more Iowa voters have had more direct contact by Mitt Romney's campaign than Newt Gingrich's campaign, to suggest that maybe Romney has some organization there. There was an argument by Matthew Dowd, who was a former Bush aide, in the Huffington Post, suggested that organization's overrated in Iowa. But I don't quite buy that because it's a caucus. It's not a primary.
Yeah, so I mean, let's explore that, because I think a lot of people are sending me emails that clearly suggest they don't really know what the process is going to be like in Iowa. So how is this going to work in Iowa? This is not a primary. It is a caucus. So how will it work? I mean, what's the nitty-gritty on the ground of when this happens?
What happens is the difference between a caucus and a primary is a caucus is run by the party and not the state. It's a meeting. It's not all day. You don't get to go when you get a lunch break at work. You have to go at a specific time. And the Democratic caucuses in Iowa are more convoluted than the Republican ones because there's sort of opportunities for horse trading and vote switching, which is unusual. But in a Republican caucus, you still have to go at the appointed time, hear a little presentation from your local party leader, then give your presidential vote. And then if you so choose, you stick around for other party business, although I suppose folks could leave at that point. The vote is at least first in the meeting, but it's not saying that every voter is going to do, because it's not the same kind of check a box and go home kind of situation. So typically speaking, on a cold Iowa winter night, January 3rd, you need some organization to say, hey, I really need you to go to this meeting tonight. And if you don't have it on the ground, everyone's questioning, have the rules changed? Republican candidates are doing better not bothering to campaign in Iowa just by having a lot of media attention and slick debate performances. But we don't know if it's really changed until we actually see what happens on the ground on January 3rd.
Well, I was looking at a couple of polls which have Ron Paul second, and I started getting email from the Ron Paul fanatics right away saying, why am I still saying this is Gingrich and Romney, given that there are polls that show Ron Paul as running second in, I think one was in Iowa, one maybe was just kind of like a general straw type poll. What does Ron Paul have a shot at winning any of these individual early states or caucuses? And if he doesn't, why not?
Well, I think he has a shot in Iowa. He probably does not have a shot anywhere else. But in Iowa, we've all seen that the Paul campaign has a very small but intense following. You know, they can win a straw poll. They can win an online internet poll. But typically speaking, once the electorate expands, the Paul slice of it does not expand. But again, in Iowa, we may be seeing the weakest lot of campaign organizations in modern political history. So if it's a very low turnout because no one's really cranked up their followers, the Paul folks could eke something out. And the polls show that they're not too far off of of the frontrunners' pace at this point. So I would not count that out in Iowa. And I'm sort of surprised I'm even saying it. But again, I don't think it means that if he won Iowa, that he would slingshot his way through the rest of the race, because I don't think he has the breadth of support nationally. But Iowa's got a shot.
Hypothetically, if we're looking at Gingrich and Romney up against Obama, my sense is that Mitt Romney is not going to do as well in debates with Barack Obama as Newt Gingrich potentially would. Gingrich strikes me as the guy with the most depth between the two of them on issues. Not that I agree with him, the best debater, and that it's going to be more of a challenge for Barack Obama. Do you agree with that? Do you think, I mean, what other factors are at play here? I'm really thinking of what will this look like in a national debate?
Well, this is the argument that the Newt's people have made, and that a lot of conservative voters seem to be buying based on his performance in the Republican debates. But it's not really a test of how he would be against Obama. His basic shtick in the Republican debates is browbeat the moderator, insult them for asking a stupid question.
Right.
And that's a one-trick pony that's not going to fly in a general election debate. If you want to have a better sense of how Newt debates against a Democrat, go look at his debate with John Kerry about climate change in 2007 and see if you feel like he's really going to own the stage in that kind of setting.
But better than Romney still, though, right?
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, Romney is a safer choice, less likely to say something provocative, but also very wily and may say whatever is conducive in the moment to help his case. And if the situation is that the public is angry with Obama because of the state of the economy, which I don't necessarily think is the case today, but maybe in a year. If Romney is seen as an inoffensive alternative who doesn't say outlandish things and doesn't feel he's going to steer the ship off the cliff, to mix my metaphors, then a Romney debate might not be an exciting affair, but might be effective. And Gingrich is always prone to saying something totally half-cocked, like our children should become janitors instead of doing their homework,
right?
Which may not. He might have pull some obscure historical fact from 1908, but that might not be what's really relevant in a general election presidential debate. But what's sort of interesting to me about this discussion is that because of Fox News and because of right-wing talk radio, they've created this insular bubble of alternative facts that a lot of voters on the Republican side might believe this to be true based on very scant evidence, and actually make a very I would say unusual nomination choice based on the bubble of reality they've created for themselves, and it might be something they really regret in a year.
Hey, in the last minute or so we have left, Nancy Pelosi has suggested when the time is right, she has information about Newt Gingrich. And Newt Gingrich has already said, depending on what and how that information is released, he expects charges to be filed against her by the House Ethics Committee or some committee in the House, because it would be information that she obtained in a way that should not be used against him in a campaign. Do you have any sense of what type of information that is? And what's kind of going on under the radar about that right now? Is Gingrich already trying to prevent this quote information from coming out? I mean, what's the reality of that?
Well, Gingrich is not trying to prevent it. Gingrich is suggesting that Pelosi is misusing information, and this shows that the investigation in the first place was politically tainted, and how the Democratic establishment fears him, yada yada yada. I would be surprised if Leader Pelosi did anything that was going to break the law, that she was going to use what is now secret information and make it public for political reasons. I would think more likely just means that there is stuff on the public record that may not be well known at this point that she might re-air, which would be perfectly fine to do as long as it's already public. I assume she's not an idiot. She has a team of lawyers. She's not going to do something that's going to put her in legal jeopardy premeditated. That's just a silly thing to do.
No, absolutely. But what type of information do you think this is?
Well, there's all sorts of ethical scrapes that Newt got into when he was speaker. He had a couple of financial arrangements around. One was around a book deal that he got admonished for. I think it's those types of things that, as he tries to sell himself as sort of uniquely ethical and above the Washington muck, there's all sorts of examples of his tenure in when he was speaker where he fell prey to many unethical temptations.
All right. In the end, who will it be on the Republican side? I mean, I know. Last time you made some predictions that were off, but bearing that in mind, at this point, who do you think it will be?
I am very loath to make the prediction. I think it's very volatile right now. I think the fact that Newt is you see sort of 6 polls in a row of Newt being in first place, that doesn't mean so much because they're all in the same time period. It's all still a pretty recent boomlet. At this point of the race in Iowa in 2003, Howard Dean was leading with 29% and John Kerry was at 18 in third place. And it flipped real quick. And we may be in a similar kind of volatile situation where it's not that front runner status is all that solidified, all that hard, and Newt is someone who is not necessarily runs in a straight line. So a lot of things happen between now and then. I'm loath to predict how it's going to turn out.
All right, Bill Scher, Campaign for America's Future, liberaloasis.com. We'll keep following it, Bill. Thanks.
Thank you.